Tonight was the end of an era. It was the final Monday Night Raw on USA Network. Final Monday Night Raw on over-the-air television before the Netflix era begins. It is finally upon us. The beginning of this $5 billion deal takes place next year, which is only 1 week away. Raw will move to Netflix. It was also, though, more importantly, the final 2-hour edition of Monday Night Raw, which has me very sad. So I don't know where you may be watching this right now, but pour one out for 2-hour Raws. It's too bad because I really felt like they were getting into the groove of the 2-hour format recently, and now they're going back to 3 or whatever it ends up being. I mean, next week's show may well be more than 3 hours. I wouldn't be shocked if next week's show was 3.5 hours. We don't exactly know how long the show is going to be next week, but going forward, SmackDown's going to be 3 hours starting this Friday, and Raw will be comparable every Monday night. Tonight was one giant infomercial, basically, for the move to Netflix, which it had to be. Raw is moving homes. You want to let the audience know. Even though they were constantly, for weeks now, driving home, Raw is moving to Netflix on January 6th. Raw is moving to Netflix on January 6th. You're still going to have people who are going to flip on USA next week and be like, where's Raw? But you want to try to minimize that as much as possible. And to that end, they did what they had to do. But this was a lame duck show. As many of the shows the last couple of weeks have felt like, really ever since Saturday night's main event, all of these shows feel like lame duck shows, even SmackDown. But even though it was a lame duck show and there wasn't a whole lot that happened, it was not a show completely devoid of anything good because we actually had 2 excellent segments on the show tonight, but it closed with one of the best segments of the night, if not the best segment of the night, involving CM Punk and Seth Rollins. Now, we are getting a lot of big matches on the show next week. It's loaded up. It feels like a pay-per-view, right? We got Roman Reigns is wrestling on Raw. Okay, when was the last time that happened? If Roman Reigns is wrestling on Raw, then you know it's a big show. So he'll be wrestling Solo Sikoa next week. We know Rhea Ripley is going to be challenging Liv Morgan for the Women's World Championship. But the big match that was made many weeks ago was a match that we were supposed to have gotten at WrestleMania this year. And we didn't because Punk got hurt. It was CM Punk against Seth Rollins. And instead of waiting until WrestleMania to do the first match, they're doing it next week on TV. My expectation is that even with Roman on the show, depending on what, I guess, the outcome of his match is going to be, this match is the real main event. This is the match that should close the show. CM Punk against Seth Rollins. They're either opening the show or they're closing the show. But this feels like the real main event of the show. Ever since Punk came back to the company at Survivor Series last year, the issue is CM Punk and Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins was beside himself, right? The night he came back, he was cussing and he was trying to get at Punk and they had to hold him back. Nobody was more upset to see CM Punk back in WWE than Seth Rollins. And they were going to ride that all the way into WrestleMania. Then they got away from it for a while, but then around summertime, they got back to it. And we've gotten it in drips and drabs since then. But in the last few weeks, ever since Survivor Series, ever since War Games, they've really ratcheted things up. And they've traded barbs on the microphone back and forth. They had a pull-apart brawl on Raw. Was it last week? Last week or the week before? 2 weeks ago. They had a pull-apart brawl. And it all culminated tonight in one final face-off in the ring between these two. No physicality because there didn't have to be. We already saw a pull-apart brawl. What more can you do? You're going to do some lame injury angle? There's nothing left to do except have the match. So there was no physicality. You put a microphone in each of their hands, you let them go out there, and you let them fire away one last time to really draw people in and make them want to see this match next week. And to that end, I thought they did a very good job. It was a tense, heated confrontation at the end of the show. CM Punk got to say his piece. Seth Rollins got to say his piece. Each of them got some shots in, some good digs in on the other. There were a couple of things that Seth Rollins said in particular that just made me cringe. You might be able to figure out what it was if you saw the segment, but it did involve a reference to AEW without actually saying AEW. We had all kinds of things in this promo. We had references to AEW. We had references to Vince McMahon, more than one, without naming him. So they were going back and forth. But there were a couple of things that Seth said in this promo about winning the war, and I was like, oh my God. But aside from that, it was an excellent segment. And now it leads into a match next week that's going to be very interesting to see what the end result of that is, because that will tell the tale of whether or not we are still going to get CM Punk and Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. The belief, the chatter that we have been hearing of late has nothing to do with CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and it has everything to do with CM Punk and Roman Reigns potentially being a match at WrestleMania 41. That would be an even bigger match. And the last that we heard, the reports that were going around, even Mike Johnson of PW Insider, who I consider to be a reputable source, says that there are discussions internally focusing on that match. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but that's where their head is at right now. And if that's the case, then we're not going to get Punk and Rollins at WrestleMania. I still feel like it's not a one and done. This can't be a one and done thing. So do we get it next week and then they run it back at Elimination Chamber or the Royal Rumble? We don't know. Next week will be a very important night for a lot of reasons as far as where we are headed for WrestleMania. Because not only is it the first Raw of the year, but you look at some of the big matches on this show involving Roman, involving Punk, involving Rhea. This is going to give us at least some insight into some of the directions that we are headed in for Las Vegas next year. We're heading into a Women's World Championship match where Rhea Ripley, I think, absolutely needs to walk out of Los Angeles next week with that championship. Because this needs to be the end of that feud. I feel the same way about that I do in many ways MJF and Adam Cole, which I talked about in my World's End review on Saturday night. I sat here and we talked about how, thank God it's over. Hopefully it's over. It needs to be over. There are just certain programs, there are certain feuds. You get to a point where it just feels like, okay, we've jumped the shark here and it's time to move on. Two very different situations and sets of circumstances. But I feel the same way about this. They have squeezed every ounce out of that feud that they can. And it's time for Rhea to move on to something else. And Liv Morgan is going to move down the card because of it. She's not going to be the beneficiary of losing. But it's time to move on, and I think we do next week. I think next week we're going to get Becky Lynch back on the show. I'd be shocked if she wasn't there. John Cena, they're advertising that John Cena's retirement tour kicks off next week. Is it going to be a case where John Cena comes out next week and he becomes the first man to announce formally for the Royal Rumble match? I think he will. Because you know he's going to be in the Rumble. Why shouldn't he be the first man to declare next week? We'll find out. Got to be doing something. We have the New Day and Rey Mysterio, and there's a tag team match. I don't think they specifically said it would take place next week, but it looks like Penta is going to be tied into that, which I talked about last week. I think that's a good spot for him to debut. So there's a lot to look forward to next week. But the Punk and the Rollins stuff was one highlight. The other highlight of the night tonight was one of the semifinal matches we got in the women's tournament to crown an Intercontinental champion. Io Sky, Lyra Valkyria. Probably the most unpredictable match in the entire tournament. I was sticking to my guns. If you watched the review last week, sticking to my guns about Lyra, going all the way. But there were a lot of people who thought, well, with Io Sky now being in the tournament, surely she's going to at least go to the finals, and we're going to get an all damage control final. And boy, did WWE want you to believe that we were going to get an all damage control final tonight, to the point where they leaned in on it a little too hard. And if I wasn't convinced that Lyra was winning going into this, it was clear as day as the match progressed who was going over in that match. They tipped their hat a little too much. But Lyra and Io went out there and they had an excellent match. One of the better women's matches on WWE television that they have had in a while. These two went out there, and I thought they killed it tonight. And it's all good news, because even though Io Sky is not going to the finals for the Intercontinental Championship, this is a good thing if you're a fan of Io Sky, because I think that this greatly enhances her chances of doing something much more significant as we head into WrestleMania. That match, by the way, the finals with Lyra and with Dakota Kai, not taking place next week. They're holding off on that for 2 weeks. And so January 13th is when we are going to get the finals of that tournament, which I guess I understand because it is going to be completely overshadowed by everything else that's going on next week. Not that they couldn't fit it on the show, but I get it. You know, I get wanting to save something special for the week after, right? You blow your load next week and you got nothing left over for the following Monday. So we'll have to wait 2 weeks to find out who the first Intercontinental Champion is going to be. But we have an entire show here to talk about the final Raw on USA Network. This is your Monday Night Raw review. It is December 30th, 2024. I am the Solomonster. Like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me here on a Monday night. Super chats are open. As they come in, you will see them popping up on your screen. I do appreciate the support. I will be reading all of your messages. This is not, by the way, the final stream of 2024. That will come tomorrow, because tomorrow night I'm going to be live here on YouTube, and it is our annual Make It Till Midnight stream, countdown to 2025. And that is coming up tomorrow night, probably around 10 p.m. Eastern or so. So if you got no New Year's plans, now you do. And not only are we going to be hanging out, I'll be taking your questions, but we're going to be counting down the best matches, ranking the best matches of 2024. So that should be a good time, and hopefully you guys can join me on the stream tomorrow night. That will be our final stream of the year. After this, our biggest year to date on YouTube, so I thank you all for that. The show opened tonight with Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett. They were standing ringside promoting the fact that this is the final Raw on USA and that it would have limited commercial interruptions. So we had no commercials for the first, they said the first 30 minutes. It really was like 40 minutes of the show. You know what that means. Whenever you get a commercial-free anything, you're going to pay for it later in the second hour, and that's exactly what happened. So they were about to introduce Jey Uso to the ring when the New Day's music hit. Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, they came out. Houston, Texas was not very happy to see them. They would not let them speak. They were trying to speak as they were coming to the ring. They got drowned out. And clearly they're leaning into it. They're really trying to, get the Dominic Mysterio thing going in every city that they go to. I mean, they had that mega heat a few weeks ago. But now they're like really leaning into it where they could speak, but then they stop like they can't, and it's like their cue, like, boo us more. And the crowd was more than happy to oblige. So they start chanting, New Day sucks. They continued to try to talk, kept getting booed, and then finally, Jey Uso's music hit, and he entered through the crowd. Once he made his way to the ring, Xavier Woods said, look, they go way back with Jey. We've seen a lot of battles between the New Day and the Usos. Who is this who just gifted 5 memberships? Bryan Musha, gifting 5 channel memberships. Thank you, Bryan. Big G, no, it was not an hour commercial free. There were a lot of people who seemingly thought it was 90 minutes, the first 90 minutes of the show. Which on a 2-hour show is the majority of the fucking show. And I saw all these comments about, the first 90 minutes. And it wasn't 90 minutes. It was 30 minutes. It's just Wade Barrett. He's got that heavy accent. So I went back and I listened to it again. I thought maybe I was crazy. And apparently he definitely did not say 90. He said 30 minutes. But again, it was like 8:42 or whatever before they took their first commercial break. But everybody thought Wade said 90. Not the case. See, I can understand 90 minutes, the first 90 minutes on a 3-hour show. You're going to be commercial free for the first 90 minutes on a 2-hour show. You may as well just go commercial free for the whole 2 hours, and that's never going to happen. Still not going to happen on Netflix either, by the way. So they were, again, trying to tell Jey, hey, we go way back. Jey told the fans, quiet down so that we could hear what this chump has to say. And they ignored him. They ignored Jey Uso, and they continued to boo anyway. So Jey said that he and the New Day, they do go way back. But he only had one thing to say to the two of them. New Day sucks. And Woods stepped up to him. Kofi got him to back down. As the New Day left, Jay stayed in the ring. He said he's got other problems to address, namely the new bloodline and Drew McIntyre. He said Roman Reigns is going to handle Solo Sikoa next week, and he's going to handle Drew McIntyre. He called out McIntyre. But then Solo Sikoa and the other members of the bloodline, they popped up on the Titantron. Solo said that Sami Zayn, he got a little too close to the sun on SmackDown last Friday. You see what happened to him. He said the Ula Fala will stay on his neck forever. He will destroy Roman Reigns next week in their tribal combat match, and then Jay and everybody else will acknowledge him. So clearly a message that they were sure to tape, I'm sure, backstage on Friday night. And that was the last we saw of or heard from Solo Sikoa for the rest of the show. So after Solo's message was done playing, Drew McIntyre, you could see him in the background. And he comes out of the crowd. Jay doesn't see him. Sneaks into the ring. And he ambushes Jey Uso. And laid a beat down on him. And then he set up for a Claymore kick, but he ate a super kick as he came in. McIntyre dropped him, though, with a Glasgow kiss. And tried again for a Claymore, but officials hit the ring to prevent him from doing so. So they got Drew out of the ring, but then he broke free, ran back down to the ring, slid in, and finally he connected on a Claymore kick, and he yelled that Jay was next. You know, it's an amazing thing because almost nothing really happened here. And yet I looked at the clock and it was already 8:15. 15 minutes of this show had already gone by, and nothing happened. I mean, it really was mostly the New Day, you know, milking those boos and the reactions and the crowd just shitting all over them. They really took their time with that. So 15 minutes went by. Crowd was loud, though. They were very animated for all of this. I still say there is a very good chance that Drew gets involved in Roman's match next week, even though they're telegraphing it. I mean, I said this a couple of weeks ago after Saturday night's main event. Remember when Drew beat Sami and he was walking to the back and they got a shot of him? I think he posted the video on his social media. He had somebody film it with his phone. And it was him walking to the back and he just was like, all right, 1 down, 4 to go. Remember, and I was having this discussion about, oh, who are the other 4 people he's referring to? Right? Jimmy and Jay obviously are 2. Who are the other 2? Is it Roman and Solo? Is it Roman and Punk? Right? He was very clear. 4 more to go after Sami Zayn. And so I was talking about that. And I said, he's going to attack Roman Reigns on January 6th. He may even cost him the match. I don't know if he's going to cost him the match. A lot of it depends on what the outcome of Tribal Combat is going to be. If Roman Reigns is going to beat Solo Sikoa next week and take back the Ula Fala, I don't see the point in Drew McIntyre getting involved in the match if Roman is just going to win the Ula Fala back anyway. If Drew's going to get involved, though, and cost Roman, that would make sense. Of course, it would prolong things with Solo. He'd still walk around as the tribal chief. But we could be in for a situation where Roman wins and then McIntyre shows up and jumps him. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. But I do think that Drew will be involved in some way, either during the match or after the match, because Roman is on his hit list. Why wouldn't he be? I mean, I know he said Jey Uso is next. McIntyre's wrestling Jey next week. So there is that. He's going to be occupied with Jey Uso, but they're going to be under the same roof. And we know Roman is on his list. Roman is his number 1 target in all this. How does he factor into this? A lot of it depends on who goes over in that match. I just don't see the point in Drew getting involved if Roman is going to win. Maybe Roman's not going to win. I don't know. We'll see. We had Chad Gable one-on-one against Otis. This is a match that should have happened months ago when the story had reached its peak. Because they had a good thing going there for a while. It was getting great heat every week. Gable was such a dick to him and to Tozawa and Maxine and the way he would bully them and berate them. And it was building to Otis, you know, finally getting that match and getting revenge on, you know, Master Gable. And we never got it. We never got a singles match between them. It's like they just blew it off. Gable kept losing, but he moved on to do other things. Even showed up on SmackDown and wrestled Cody Rhodes. Lost to him too. Now all of a sudden they circle back around to this match. Gable started off by clubbing him with chops. Had no effect. Otis responded with a shoulder block that left Gable all rattled in the corner. He lifted Gable over his head for the gorilla press drop. And then after he dropped him, Gable rolled out to the floor. So Gable created an opening for himself by avoiding a shoulder charge, and Otis went into the ring post. Gable targeted the left knee after that misfire, and later on, Gable missed a diving headbutt off the top rope when Otis rolled out of the way. Otis hit the caterpillar elbow drop, but when he tried for the pin, Gable was able to get his foot on the bottom rope. Creed brothers, they were out there. They attacked Tozawa at ringside. That prompted Otis to get involved. And Maxine tackled Ivy Nile to the ground. That got a pop. She was raining blows down on her. As Otis re-entered the ring, Gable locked on the ankle lock. And after a struggle, Otis managed to power his way out of it, sent Gable out of the ring. Creeds entered, and they got taken out by Otis. They got tossed into Gable. Otis was using them as target practice. So then Otis locked on an ankle lock of his own. Gable escaped. He nailed a very impressive deadlift German suplex. You do a deadlift to someone the size of Otis, it's going to be impressive no matter what. But Gable obviously is the smaller of the two, but he's very strong. So that was impressive. Gable went up top, but he got met by a clothesline from Otis as he jumped off. And then Ivy Nile tried to grab at Otis from the outside. That created a momentary distraction that led to another ankle lock by Chad Gable. And this time, the grapevine was applied, and after a while, with nowhere to go, and the pain intensifying, Otis had no choice but to tap out. If Gable would have lost this match, I would have personally gotten my golden shovel, and I would have shoveled dirt on top of his grave myself. He could not afford a loss in this match. I know in the grand scheme of things, who gives a shit, right? He's in the mid-card anyway, nobody cares. But he couldn't go in there and lose. He had to win this match. If you are going to do something of any real meaning or note, it's going to be with Gable. It's not going to be with Otis. There's just so much more upside with Gable if you use him the right way. And you could very easily call a clean slate, new year, get him off this show, move him into something else. I don't see that being the case with Otis. I'm not saying you can't do anything with Otis. And clearly Otis is beloved by the fans, but there is more to do with Chad Gable. There is more potential. There's more money potentially in Chad Gable if he is correctly used, either as a heel or a babyface, than with Otis. He had to win this match. He's the one leading the charge with American Made. He cannot keep losing. He needed to win. So it was a necessary win, a must win for him, and a rare singles win for Chad Gable. And it was a really good match to boot. Probably the best singles match of Otis's career. I was racking my brain trying to think of a better match I've seen him in, at least singles-wise. I can't think of one. So probably the best match he's ever had. But like I said before, this match should have happened months ago. It was still fun to watch. It was a fun match. Hopefully American Made, though, gets a one-way ticket to SmackDown and a fresh start in 2025 because they need it. We got a lengthy video promo with comments from Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. This was ahead of their Women's World Title match on the Netflix premiere, which is coming up next week. For those who may have missed it, this is now a last woman standing match. They added that stipulation in late last week. It was just randomly announced on the broadcast of Main Event. I don't know. I wasn't watching Main Event, but evidently it was either mentioned by the announcers or there was a commercial that advertised it. So yes, it's now a last woman standing match. In the video here, Rhea Ripley said that after a year-long reign as champion, she walked into and out of WrestleMania with her title. She said that she took her eyes off the ball and she paid the price, or has paid the price for it ever since. She said that after all the backstabbing and all the games with Liv Morgan, this has to end. Yeah, you're telling me. I would say so. Yes, this has to end. Morgan talked about taking the women's title, the Judgment Day, and Dominic all away from Rhea. She said that she's been having so much fun that she is sad that it has to end. And Ripley said that Liv cleared her of all the dead weight that was holding her down. She said that it's time to return the favor by unburdening Liv of the women's world title. Liv said that she's always been one step ahead of Rhea, and this time will be no different. And Rhea said that Liv is all out of moves, and Raquel and Dominic, they can't save her from the beating that she has coming. And both women separately, to close this out, said that this has to end. Truer words have never been spoken. This has to end. And I believe it will finally end next week. That's why we have ourselves a last woman standing match. Although a last woman standing match could also be an invitation to bullshit, because there's no disqualifications. There's nothing stopping Raquel and Dominic and anybody else from being involved. But I have to believe that this will finally be the end next week. We went backstage to the Judgment Day. They were all there, all but Liv Morgan. She was not there. Dom was there, JD McDonough, Carlito. They were all talking. Dominic told them that Liv has to have something up her sleeve. Camera pulled back. It showed Raquel and Finn Balor. Raquel said that Liv has been so busy preparing for her match with Rhea that she hasn't even spoken with her. Balor sarcastically said, well, Lady Liv knows exactly how to handle Rhea Ripley because she has a plan for everything. Balor said that they have to take care of Damian Priest. And then as everybody else left, he held Raquel back and very insincerely told Raquel to tell Liv that he wishes her the very best of luck in her match next week. He may get involved in the match. Last woman standing, there's no rules. Finn Balor might come out there and try to help Liv, and then it backfires and it blows up in her face. Could happen. We were supposed to get a match between R-Truth and Pete Dunne. R-Truth comes out. He is singing his song to the ring. He doesn't even make it to the ring. He's barely halfway down the aisleway. And Pete Dunne attacks him from behind. Beats the shit out of this guy. And producers run out, referees run out, and pull him off of Truth. And Dunne says, I'm nobody's butch. He said that a few times. And that was it. We moved on. This was so insignificant that it wasn't even worth waiting to see if R-Truth was okay. It wasn't like he beat him with a fucking club or a chair. But that was it. Apparently, R-Truth was unable to compete, and so we moved on to the next set, which is okay with me. I can't say that I'm sad about it. Kathy Kelly interviewed Io Sky and Dakota Kai in the back about the possibility of the two of them meeting in the finals of the Intercontinental title tournament. Dakota talked about taking out Zoey Stark tonight and then said that it would be an honor to face Io if it comes to that. She said the thing that matters is that a member of Damage Control walks away with the championship. And then she left, and Io said that the night belongs to Damage Control. That led into our first of two semifinal round matches in the tournament to crown an IC champion. Dakota Kai against Zoey Stark. Zoey was in control until Dakota caught her with a rolling backcracker. Then across the ring, Dakota cracked her with a boot to the head that led to a near fall. Zoey answered with an exploder suplex and a knee to the head. There was an attempted springboard attack by Zoey, but she caught a super kick to the face, and then Dakota finished things off with the fireman's carry into the Pele kick, which was supposed to land flush, and the announcers called it as if it landed flush right in the head. Actually, it didn't, and it caught Zoey under the armpit. An unfortunate botch at the finish, which is the worst possible time for there to be one, but it was minor. Nobody seemed to either notice or care. Her win got a good reaction from the crowd, and Dakota Kai now advances to the finals. And so this was a solid match. I thought it was fine. And Dakota now moves on to the finals, and that paves the way. Now, at this point in the show, right, it paves the way potentially for an all Damage Control final in 2 weeks. Because they were really pushing this hard as a possibility. I just never bought into it actually happening. And that's one of the reasons why, because they drew so much attention to it. It's like somebody walking around with a Money in the Bank briefcase and the announcers won't shut up about, oh, they might cash in tonight. They might cash in tonight. It's like that thing that the announcers do. And they do this in both companies. And it just drives me nuts when you're watching a championship match, main event match, right? And it's building and it's building and it's building. And the announcers, or one of them anyway, will say, he's going to win the title. And then you're like, fuck you. No, he's not. Thanks. Thanks for telling me he's not. And I never understand why they do that. Like, there might be certain situations where, okay, you want to have your announcers kind of throw that out there as a possibility, but they kind of just, it's like as a nervous reflex or something. They do it so often. And it's just a complete spoiler to what's coming. And it always just drove me nuts. The fact that they were pushing this so hard tonight should have been a tell to people that it wasn't going to happen. But there were still people who were shocked when we got the result of that match. I don't know. I don't know why people are so surprised. So they showed Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett. They were speaking at ringside. Tessitore said that Raw has aired on cable television since the very first episode, which aired on January 11th, 1993. And the other thing they did tonight, many, many times, even right at the very end of the show, every time they mentioned that Raw is moving to Netflix next week, they were sure to follow it up by letting everybody know, but SmackDown is still on USA. Like, Raw's moving to Netflix, but SmackDown's going to be on USA, so don't worry about it. Which, again, is smart, because you will have people who don't really pay attention. And when they realize that Raw moved to Netflix, they'll wonder, where's SmackDown? So you have to let people know.
It's
Otherwise,
the amazing Gunther.
Who's going to tell them? Gunther's not going to tell
Jerry
them.
Lawler loves Gunther.
Gunther doesn't give a shit.
All hail Gunther.
Gunther has no time for these people who can't figure these things out. He has no time for lesser life forms. Hey, Dark Effect just came in with a $50 super chat. Wow. There it is. There's the big bomb of the night from Dark Effect. Hey, Dark Effect, thank you. Thank you, sir. You may end up with one of the last big bombs of the year. There you go. I guess we'll see tomorrow, but I'll get to your message in a little bit, brother. Don't go nowhere. But yes, they were talking about Raw being on USA for many, many years. Obviously, there was a break in between when they went to TNN for those 5 years. But otherwise, it's been all USA Network over all these years. Over 1,200 episodes of Raw on USA alone. And then they aired a video package showcasing Raw's run on USA Network. And it was filled with highlights from 93 right on until the present day. So you got highlights of a lot of the big Raw moments from over the years and from the Attitude Era and the John Cena era and the Shield and 1, 2, 3 Kid pinning Razor Ramon and just everything. Everything in between. And the final shot of that video was Stone Cold Steve Austin in his camo hat and his camo, was he wearing a camo jacket during the beer truck? I think he was, right? But it was him standing on top of the beer truck, which is one of the all-time great moments in Raw history. And it was a very appropriate thing to end on, because when you think of Monday Night Raw, unless you are a fan who only started watching Raw, you are a fan that started watching this show in the last 5 years. If you think of Monday Night Raw, you immediately think of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, when you think of all the major names, okay, and there have been a lot of them that have appeared on this show over the years. You could pick out different eras, right? The PG era, the Cena era, the Roman era, whatever you want to call it. Stone Cold Steve Austin is the name that you associate with Monday Night Raw. If you are a longtime fan of this show, it's Austin, and everybody else is fighting for second place, including Rock, Cena, you can name them all. This show will forever be associated with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the greatest moments and most memorable moments and segments in the history of this show all involved Steve Austin. Usually with some sort of piece of machinery or some vehicle. But I think of Raw, I think of Austin. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. We had some 6-man tag team action with Damian Priest and the War Raiders, the new Raw tag team champions, against Finn Balor, JD McDonough, and Dominic Mysterio. We are still getting Damian Priest feuding with the Judgment Day. Oh, I have to start with this. I can't forget this. The Judgment Day. We got breaking news here. The Judgment Day have new music. Alter Bridge is no more. They have new music. They have been given the Def Rebel special. I don't even know if Def Rebel necessarily composed this theme. I assume they did. But when I say the Def Rebel special, what I mean is you have a theme, and it's actually pretty good, and then you get a downgrade because you are not allowed, apparently, to continue to have an awesome theme song. So like Sheamus, who got his old theme back, and then he had it taken away from him for some shitty generic Irish music. The same has now happened to the Judgment Day. We went from Alter Bridge to what is now, honestly, the song itself, my first time hearing it, I'm not even going to say it's bad. It's just a bad fit for this group. It doesn't fit the Judgment Day at all. Like, that song was associated with this group from day one. Like, you hear that music, you think of the Judgment Day. And now they have some sort of generic, hip hop song or whatever it is. It's not a good fit. I don't know why the music had to change. Frankly, this group feels like it's on its last legs anyway. So in the end, it might not even matter. Although the fact that they got new music probably tells me that they're not splitting up anytime soon. Otherwise, why even bother giving them new music? So now we're going to be in for another 2 years of the Judgment Day with Dominic Mysterio, perhaps, as the leader. Balor saved McDonough from a War Raiders double team, but he and McDonough got sent flying onto the announce desk by a double charge from Eric and Ivar. They returned from the commercial break to Eric attempting to fight his way out of the Judgment Day corner. Ivar got in. He missed then the Bronco Buster as Balor got out of the way. Ivar leaped to his corner. He made the tag to Damian Priest, who proceeded to clean house. He had Dominic in his sights. South of Heaven attempt was interrupted by Carlito, who provided a distraction long enough, which is basically all Carlito is good for these days. It's for that momentary distraction and then getting his ass kicked. But that was just long enough for Dom to clip the leg of Damian Priest. Action outside saw Balor and McDonough get taken out of the equation by the War Raiders. In the ring, Priest put an end to things with a swinging, it was kind of like a swinging South of Heaven choke slam, almost like he caught him for like a boss man slam, but we'll call it a swinging South of Heaven on Dominic, and he got the pin. After the match, Balor got the jump on Priest and attacked the knee. Eric and Ivar, they stepped in before Balor could do any damage, and Balor vowed as he left that this isn't over. He said, "This is over when I say it's over." And I wept. When he said this isn't over, I wept. I wept for the end of 2-hour Raws, and I wept when he reminded me that this feud is not over. Just the only question is, when do you do the match? When is a good time for them? Because clearly they're not wrestling next week, or they would have announced the Balor Priest match. So when is a good time to finally blow this thing off once and for all? Do we do it as a TV main event in a few weeks? Do we do it on Saturday night's main event? Do we do it at the Royal Rumble? Just don't tell me WrestleMania. Anything but that. It's like Liv and Rhea. Like I can't wait for WrestleMania for this. This has to be over before. So when do they do the match? I feel like Saturday night's main event or the Rumble would be a good place to put some finality to this. In the back, Adam Pearce informed a very upset Jey Uso that he knows he's very angry right now, but Drew McIntyre was already escorted out of the arena. But next week, he's going to give him what he wants. He's going to give him a match one-on-one with Drew McIntyre. So That match has now been added to Raw on Netflix, debut next week. It will be Drew McIntyre one-on-one with Jey Uso. Then we had a teaser video for the newest addition to Monday Night Raw. And I got to tell you guys, and I'm going to show you this right here on your screen right now, was the latest tease for a new star debuting on Raw. And I don't know, guys. I'm going to need your help here because I'm drawing a blank. I mean, I just can't figure out who this is. Who could this be? I don't know. But apparently he or she is coming to Monday Night Raw very soon. Let me know in the chat. Wrong answers only for who this is coming to Monday Night Raw. Come back, and in the ring is Ludwig Kaiser. He's standing in the middle of the ring. And he referred to himself as European Elegance. No relation, I'm sure, to Ash by Elegance in TNA. He wanted Braun Breaker to come out. I got a funny note on Braun Breaker I'll get to in a minute. But he wanted Braun Breaker to come out. He didn't get Braun Breaker. He got Sheamus instead. We haven't seen Sheamus since Survivor Series. He came out in street clothes. He looked pissed off. He stormed down to the ring, and he immediately drilled Kaiser with a knee strike. They talked about how Kaiser had broken Sheamus's ribs at Survivor Series. This was his big return. Fans didn't really react to it like a big return, but I guess that's kind of how they wanted to portray it. Kaiser briefly put up a fight, but he got felled by a brogue kick, and then he rolled out to safety. And that was the end of that. So welcome back, Sheamus, I guess. We'll be getting a TV match in the next couple of weeks, probably, with him and Ludwig Kaiser. We go to the back. Rey Mysterio is hanging out just in the back with the LWO, and they are with the Alpha Academy. And Rey is trying to perk up Otis, obviously, who's very upset after losing to Chad Gable earlier in the night. And he's telling him to keep his head high. You're going to have another shot to kick that guy's ass. And Otis got all fired up, and off he went. Now, the whole point of this was to show that Rey Mysterio is a locker room leader, so that when the New Day walked up to him, they can mock him for it. And that's exactly what happened. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, they walk up to him, and they are making fun of Rey, calling him a locker room leader. This all resulted in Rey issuing a challenge to the two of them for a tag team match. And they accepted. And then Xavier Woods was wondering which one of your loyal followers here is going to be your tag team partner. And he went down the line of all the LWO members. He said, this guy in a mask, talking about Dragon Lee. This guy in a hat, talking about Joaquin Wilde. This guy with no hat, talking about Cruz del Toro. He said, maybe her. Maybe Zelina Vega will be your tag team partner. And that's how they left it. How about none of the above? I know who his partner is going to be. This is how we get the debut of Penta. I assume this is taking place next week. I don't know if they officially announced this tag match or not. But next week is where we're going to get Penta on this show. And it's the perfect way to introduce him to the show, because right off the bat, you've got this guy. If he's going to be Rey Mysterio's tag team partner, you've got him rubbing elbows with someone who is still, he's not the most prominently featured anymore, but he is still one of the biggest baby faces on the show. He's a legend, right? He's a Hall of Famer. It's a big deal if you are debuting and you are immediately going to be associated or partnered with someone like Rey Mysterio. So I think that's a great spot to debut him in. And as I talked about last week, when I talked about this very idea, I then would like to see Penta turn on Rey Mysterio and beat the crap out of him. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be next week. It could be the week after, but next week would be a fine time to do it as well. Because you really want to make an impact. That's the way you do it. You show up, you're in that spot. I think he's going to get a great reaction. I think there's going to be enough people who know who this fucking guy is, that when they hit his music or they show his face or he walks out or whatever it is, he's probably going to have this great entrance too. He's going to get a great reaction. He's going to be super over. And then at the end of all of this, I would like to see him attack Rey Mysterio and set up a program between Penta and Rey Mysterio as we head into the Rumble, we head into WrestleMania. I think that would be a great way to start his run off, but as a heel. Because the one thing I don't want to see is Penta debuting and then all the memes, right? What are all the memes and the jokes about? Oh, I can't wait to see him in the LWO or in Legado. And then you're going to put the fucking guy in the LWO. I don't want to see him in the LWO. I want to see him try to, if anything, take down the LWO. I want to see him in the ring against Dragon Lee. I want to see him in the ring against Rey Mysterio. That's where I would like to see this go. But as a way to introduce him to the WWE audience and to introduce him on what is honestly shaping up to be the biggest, most highly promoted episode of Raw in the 30-plus year history of this show. What a spot for Penta to make his debut. And I can only imagine what is going through the mind of Rey Fenix. I'm sure he's very happy for his brother. But there's a piece of him that's just sitting at home, not doing anything, not working or anything, sitting on his ass at home, who's just dying on the inside. Like, it should have been us. Not just him, it should have been me. It should have been us. And it's not. And it's not going to be for a long time yet. And I'm sure that's very frustrating for him. But I'm happy for Penta because this I think is going to be a lot of fun to see how he assimilates into WWE. We have seen other luchadors debut, and we have seen what's happened with them. Dragon Lee is a great example of this. Dragon Lee actually had a nice run in NXT. And then he got called up to the main roster, and it looked like Triple H was a fan of his, and he was being pushed pretty well, actually, initially, when he debuted on SmackDown. Then he disappeared. Weeks and weeks went by. No Dragon Lee. And I don't remember if it was an injury issue or a visa issue or what the issue was. When he came back, he was never pushed at the same level that he was when he was on SmackDown. The move to Monday Night Raw basically ruined whatever momentum he had built up to that point. And Dragon Lee is a tremendous talent. It sucks to see him just sort of withering away in the background. And we've seen this with other people who have debuted, other international stars and luchadors as well. I don't want to see the same thing happen to Penta. Penta is someone who, not only is he a good wrestler, but he just has this charisma about him that not a lot of people have. Now, I mean, he may not be going out there every week and cutting these long promos in English. That may not be his strong suit. I think it would be best to have somebody with him. You know, even in Lucha Underground, we found out that his master was Vampiro, right? So you had Penta and Vampiro. And then in AEW, they put Alex Abrahantes with him and Phoenix. I do think it would be best to have somebody with him. But he is someone who can get over. He doesn't have to go out there and cut promos. He just has to go out there and say Cero Miedo. He just has to go out there and give a hand gesture. They can make those Penta gloves. My God, they'll make a killing off those gloves if they sell them on WWE Shop. Like, he can get over and be a big star for them if they give him the opportunity to be a big star. And I hope that he's able to do that. And then eventually when Rey Fenix is free and he comes in, you could have the Lucha Bros as a tag team. Right? That will happen at some point. It's just going to be a very long time before we see that. But you just know. You just know that Phoenix is watching this. It's eating him up on the inside. Like, motherfucker, I should be there too. It sucks, but what are you going to do? So we had the final semifinal match in the women's tournament to crown the first ever Intercontinental Champion, with Lyra Valkyria taking on Io Sky. This one here was a lot of fun. This and the closing segment were the two best things of the entire show. As matches go, easily the best match of the night. But this was a lot of fun. Dakota Kai, they showed her up. She was sitting in one of the suites, watching on, and they again teased the idea that, we might get an all damage control final. Like, okay. So very fast pace here at the beginning. A lot of dodges and roll-up attempts from both women. Valkyria, she gained control with a drop kick to Io's knee. Io, though, was able to fight back. She went up top. She got slammed, though, knee first by Lyra. And that took us to a commercial break. Io made a comeback. She soared off the top with a missile drop kick that got her a close 2 count. There was an O'Connor roll by Io that turned into a bridging German suplex on Lyra, and Lyra kicked out. Spinning heel kick from Valkyria could not get the job done either. And so she headed up to the top rope again. Io met her there on the ropes and began to batter her with strikes before she hit this fantastic rolling avalanche powerbomb, basically off the top rope for the nearest of near falls. And the crowd was with them too. Crowd was with them, which was impressive because Lyra Valkyria has not been featured prominently at all on television in quite some time. You know, to the point that I was just making a moment ago about Dragon Lee, right? Lyra Valkyria. At first, you know, they had her and Becky Lynch sharing television time together. It was right before Becky left. And that was kind of done as a way, I'm sure Becky wanted to work with her. That was done as a way to try to get her off the ground and like, oh, okay, she's got the Becky Lynch endorsement. So she was also getting some television time. She went all the way to the finals of the Queen of the Ring tournament before she got squashed literally by Nia Jax. And then after that, it's like hard for her to even buy time on TV. You know how they have these infomercials, these time buys? She was calling Titan Tower trying to buy time on this show, and they said, nope, not happening. And they cooled her off a lot. So it's understandable if she were to go out there and the crowd would just be sort of indifferent to her. They were mostly reacting to Io. They were cheering for Io. Io is just, she's super over right now. But they were reacting to Lyra too. I don't want to say it was all Io because that wouldn't be fair. So Io went up to the top rope. She hit a standing moonsault from the top onto a standing Lyra, that is, on the floor outside. And so with Lyra stunned, she put her back in the ring, and now Io goes back up to the top rope once more. And Io Sky is setting up for her over the moonsault. Lyra rolls out of the way, and Io lands on her feet. There was another O'Connor roll by Io that this time was reversed into a bridging pin by Lyra Valkyria for what wasn't for me, but seemingly for most other people, was the shock win. Lyra Valkyria beats Io Sky, and she punches her ticket to the finals of the tournament in 2 weeks. It's going to be her one-on-one with Dakota Kai. One of those two women will be the first ever Intercontinental champion. Io is so fucking good. She's just so good at what she does. And Lyra's very good too. I'm going to take nothing away from her. They were both very good in this match. Io, though, is just, as the women go, she's just on another level from most everybody else they have on that roster. They tipped their hand, though, a little too hard. They went in a little too deep on all of the damage control final. We might get all damage control in the finals of the tournament. And they said it so many times that they managed to convince most people, I would have thought, that it's not actually going to happen. And it didn't. And I wasn't surprised. Because, you know, Io Sky was obviously always going to go to the semifinals of this tournament because they did a storyline injury angle with Kairi Sane. I don't believe Kairi is hurt. So she was always going to go to the semifinals. But Io is in a position where she should be doing so much more. And the best part about this is that it frees up Io Sky now to do something bigger as we go into WrestleMania. They had that tease several weeks ago on Raw that ended with Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. They were each tugging at the women's championship. We had that parting shot of the two of them having a face-off. They were having a stand-down right at the end of the show. And that's when I had this eureka moment in my head, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. All right. I change of plans here, right? Maybe have Io Sky beat Liv Morgan to win the championship, and then you can blow off the feud with Rhea and Liv and have Io go into WrestleMania as the defending champion and have Rhea beat her for the belt. Because the whole thing is like, Rhea's going to get the belt back next week. Do you honestly believe that Rhea Ripley is going to win the Women's World Championship on January 6th and that they're going to take the belt off of her at WrestleMania? I don't think they're going to take the belt off of her that quickly. So it just felt to me like if Io at least is champion now, she could be the defending champion like she was this year, going into WrestleMania, and then she could drop the belt to Rhea. The roles being reversed, I wouldn't feel that Io's chances of becoming champion are very good. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to see the match. I do. And if they're not going to do Rhea Ripley against Bianca Belair, which is probably the only other Rhea Ripley match that I would say I would rather see at WrestleMania next year. If there's a path to do Rhea and Bianca, I would take it. Because I think that match could be that fucking good. But if not, then I would like to see Io Sky be the one. So now she's free. She's not the Intercontinental champion. She's not going to be. She could win the Royal Rumble. She doesn't even have to win the Rumble. She could win the Elimination Chamber, right? Either one. And then she can become number one contender. We can get Rhea Ripley and Io Sky at WrestleMania. She's just too good and too popular right now not to be involved in some kind of big match at WrestleMania. She has to be on the card, and I just don't know what else she would be doing. It always just felt to me like that title, that IC title, was Lyra's for the taking. So Lyra Valkyria winning the Intercontinental Championship, she was my original pick to win the entire thing. So I just stuck with her the entire time. And I feel the same way now that I did then. Not only do I think she's going to win, but I think that they will likely end up doing Lyra defending against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. But again, that frees up Io Sky now to do something with the women's world title. So even though she lost here, I think that it's going to end up, I hope, being a very good thing for her. Or if you're an Io Sky fan, believe me, there's bigger and better things that she could be doing at WrestleMania. Now, I mentioned a little while ago, I was going to say something about Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker was, I guess, not supposed to be on the show tonight. But something very odd happened in the final commercial break of the show. They cut back to Raw literally for 2 seconds. That's about how long it lasted. And we very briefly got a shot of Braun Breaker being interviewed. It looked like he was being interviewed by Adam Pearce, of all people. He was talking to Adam Pearce. It looked like he was up in one of the suites with his back turned to the crowd because you could see the crowd behind him. And the only thing we heard out of his mouth was Sheamus. And they quickly cut away and went right back to commercial. Then by the time they came back, Seth Rollins was in the ring because he had made his entrance before the break. Rollins is in the ring for the closing segment. So that was it. That was the last we saw of Braun Breaker. I don't know what the fuck happened there. I'm assuming that was never meant to air. It wasn't that it got cut. It was they'll probably put it up on YouTube or something. I'm curious what he was talking about, but we'll never know because we didn't see him again after that. So that was very strange. So we went to the ring for the closing segment. And it was Seth Rollins in the ring who actually, compared to how he usually dresses, he looked as normal as we've seen him on this show in a very long time. And he bored all of us by rambling on and on about next week, after next week, I'm still going to be here. I'll be here the following week and the week after that. And CM Punk, he's going to take his ball and go home again. So that brought out CM Punk. Punk gets into the ring. And he calls Rollins out for his line about taking his ball and going home. First time I ever heard that on a wrestling show, but probably the first time I ever heard it anywhere was Vince McMahon, right? Vince McMahon and The Rock. He brought The Rock back in a panic after Austin walked out in 2002, right? Oh, Stone Cold took his ball and he went home. So Punk calls him out for using what he calls one of the most cliched bootlicker lines that he's ever heard. What paragon of virtue did you get that from, right? The same line that he used in that promo segment earlier in the year when it was him and Seth and Drew McIntyre, which is one of the best television segments all year. We had that three-way promo and Drew was sitting cross-legged on top of the announce desk. And he said it to Drew, right? He was talking about how somebody called you the chosen one many years ago. Oh, what paragon of virtue was it? So he reused the line here. He said, what paragon of virtue did you get that from? Who originally said that? Who wanted to turn the people against the boys whenever he got told no? Yeah, whatever happened to that guy? Fuck that guy. He said, did Stone Cold Steve Austin take his ball and go home? You know, I haven't seen the man around these parts in a long time. Did she take her ball and go home too? And that got a rise out of the crowd. Because you want to tell 15,000 strong in Houston that I abandoned them? Or do you just want to cry because I abandoned you? Punk said that he has no regrets. He doesn't want to talk about the last 10 years. He wants to talk about the last 10 months. How's your neck? And Seth says, oh, my neck is fine. He starts moving his neck around. Then he goes, how's your knee? And Seth starts to jump up and down on one leg. Punk goes, how's your insides? Because I watched Bronson Reed hit you with 6 tsunamis. How's your pride? Because you didn't get revenge on him. And you saw me break his ankle in War Games. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm like going crazy because I'm listening to CM Punk say all of these things. And I'm thinking to myself, like, he asked him about every part of his body except the one part that he cried about for half the year. What about the back? Didn't this guy, he was selling a broken back on television. You ask him about the neck. You ask him about the knee. You ask him about the guts. You don't ask him about the back. That was part of his story for months, that he was wrestling with a broken back. Drove me nuts. So Punk said he came back. He didn't want to make friends. He told us in that first promo on Raw, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make money. He goes, next week, I get to make a boatload of cash making Seth the victim that he so badly wants to be. And he called him little brother. So Rollins told him, cut that little brother crap. You know the difference between Punk and everybody else who left? He said that they actually left. He said his wife, she left to go raise a kid, something that he knows Punk knows nothing about. He said, you don't know what that's like. Stone Cold, he said it was the biggest mistake he ever made. He understands about change. I'm not even sure what he really meant by that. By the way, Stone Cold's been getting a lot of mentions lately. Even in that New Day promo when they turned heel on Big E, right? Stone Cold Steve Austin broke his neck and he came back. So we got 2 Stone Cold name drops here in this segment. What's he going to be doing at WrestleMania? He's already said he's going to be there. He doesn't like to leave his home state. He doesn't live in Texas anymore. He's lived in Nevada for many years. WrestleMania is coming to his home state. So unlike this year, he will be at WrestleMania next year. What would you have Stone Cold Steve Austin doing? I just remembered that. I haven't even given any thought to what Austin could be doing on that show. He's not going to be wrestling. But like, what could he be involved in? What match would make sense for Stone Cold to be involved? I don't know. Wouldn't a Stone Cold John Cena match, right? We never did get that match. I'm just saying. I'm not pitching for it. I'm just saying it's interesting. It's interesting to think about. But he said Punk wanted this place to die with the echoes of those CM Punk chants. He went on his buddy's podcast and he tried to tear this place down. And when that didn't work, he took every shot that he could to try to kill this place. And he still couldn't do it. And then he took a big chunk of change to go join the competition. How'd that work out for you? Seth said he stayed and he fought. That's how revolutions are made. Oh my God, this revolutions crap again. I said the biggest thing, one of the biggest annoyances about the Seth Rollins gimmick to me is when he comes out and he's cackling like a freaking jackal and he goes, I am a visionary. I am a revolutionary. And I said, what did you revolutionize? Fashion? Like fucking hell you did. What has he ever revolutionized? I still haven't gotten a straight answer to this question. But he says it in every promo when he comes out. So he's talking about revolutions, and this is how revolutions are made. You stay in the trenches and you fight. Not by cowards who abandon their families. That's how we win the war. That's how we won the war. And now you want to come back in here and wave the flag with us. No way. You can't big brother me anymore because I am the damn big brother. So you will take another 10 years off after January 6th, but it's not going to be Punk's decision. It's going to be a decision that I make for you. So now it was Punk's chance to respond. He said Seth wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. He loved the place that he worked. He just hated the guy in charge. And I misunderstood this at first because I thought he was talking about Tony Khan. My initial thought when he said that was because the last place he worked was not WWE. So I thought he was referring to AEW still. And I was like, oh boy, he's just coming out guns blazing here at Tony. And then I realized, oh wait, he's not talking about Tony. He's talking about loving this place and just hating the guy in charge who's no longer there. So he said he just hated the guy in charge, and that guy loves Seth. And in situations where he should have had his back, all Seth did is shoot arrows in it. And then he leaves, and lo and behold, he shows his true colors and he stabs Roman Reigns in the back. And now he's dressed like an idiot, trying to play victim in a situation that he created. He said, those arrows kill weak people. The greats find a way to march forward, and he left because he had to, until he got far enough away that those arrows couldn't reach him anymore. And he came back because for 7 years, mostly during Seth's television segments, they chanted his name. He should be dead, but he's not. And oh, the arrow throwers are mad. Next week, he's walking into LA on Netflix with a fistful of arrows, and he's going to jam them down Seth's corporate throat. Seth said that he's never said this to Punk's face before, but once upon a time, he may have been a pioneer. What he's become is a cancer to this business, and cancer does not cure itself. The only way to defeat it is to cut it out. So in 1 week, you bring your fistful of arrows, and he'll bring his eyes of fire and his heart full of hate and rage, and he will burn Punk to the ground. And the final parting image of Monday Night Raw on cable television ended with a tense stare down between Seth Rollins and CM Punk. You know that there's going to be a bunch of WWE fans that are going to be very hot at what Seth said when he called them the competition. Even because they don't even look at AEW as competition, and they are and they aren't. In many ways, they're not competition anymore, but they are competition because they're all competing from the same pool of talent. But there are just some fans out there that if you even insinuate that AEW is a competitor, like, oh, they're the competition, they get very upset. So I'm sure that'll get some people hot and bothered. They both got off some good shots, I thought, here in this segment. Punk easily won this round tonight. Okay, if you have to declare a winner here tonight, the winner is CM Punk. And Punk brought an intensity to this segment that I'm trying to think back to when we had that last segment with him and Drew McIntyre. Remember they had Hell in a Cell on Raw and they kept them apart, but they just cut promos on each other. Probably the go home promo right before the PLE. I don't even know that Seth or Punk rather was necessarily as intense during that segment as he was, delivering these lines to Seth Rollins here in this segment. So, he did it with an intensity I thought that was needed for this final hard sell for their match next week. Seth with I'm going to burn you down. I'm going to burn you down because this is my theme song. Like that was, come on. That was a little, it hit a little close to home when Punk called him corporate. Because you know who came up with the whole burn it down thing? It was Vince McMahon. He's the one who came up with it in the first place. It wasn't something that Seth was doing. It was a Vince idea. Or at least it was to add it to the theme music. But yeah, when he said that, I just, you know what? Actually, I winced. I cringed when Seth talked about how we won the war. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what war did you win? When was war really even waged? Are we still talking NXT and Dynamite? Is that the war that we're talking? Like, what war are we talking about here? The War of 1812? The Spanish-American War? But like, for Rollins of all people to be standing in the ring and he's like, we won the war, and the stuff about winning the war, and basically insinuating like, and then you came back, right? That's why CM Punk came back. We won the war, and now you come back and you wave the flag, and I'm like, come on, like that was just cringe to me. So that alone, I thought disqualified him from the competition tonight, and CM Punk automatically won. But I thought overall this was an excellent segment. It was very heated. We didn't have any physicality because there was no physicality needed. We already had physicality between these two a couple of weeks ago. You want to save that physicality for next week, and that is going to be a huge match. They've done everything they could. They've done all that they can to build this up as a major big-time match. And now we've come to the debut next week, and we'll get to see Rhea and Liv, and Seth and Punk, and Roman and Solo, and the debut of Penta. It's going to be a big night next week. It's going to be basically a PLE. I mean, that's what it is. That's what it feels like. And I'm sure that there might be a surprise or two on the show as well. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also very sad. Raw not being on USA anymore. I'm not sad about that because, I mean, who gives a shit? Like, I don't have any loyalty to the USA Network. But it is the end of an era, you know, Raw no longer being on just regular broadcast television. But I'm more upset about Raw going back to 3 hours because I really did feel like they were finding their groove at 2 hours and proving that, yes, you can actually put on excellent shows at 2 hours when the effort is there and you have the right ideas and the right creative and the right people. But we had a show a few weeks ago. It might have been the New Day anniversary show, but there was a show where they opened the show and it was all talking for like 25 minutes. And then we had the New Day segment and everything, and it was only 2 hours long. But I thought this was one of the better Raws they've done all year. So it's not a matter of like, oh, there has to be this much wrestling, and like, you can just watch the show and you know when you have an excellent show, and you know when the show is shit. And they were finding their groove again after so many years of 3 hours on Mondays. And now all of a sudden it's right back to 3 hours or 3 hours plus, whatever it's going to be. So I'm sad about that. I'm sad about SmackDown going to 3 hours. I don't believe that, you know, bigger is always better. I do believe less is more, but this is how it's going to be now going forward. And if nothing else, it should give opportunities to some people who have not been featured on the show. And it's going to give them a reason to call up some new faces, I think, from NXT, especially on the women's side. And I do think we're going to get that. We still, you know, I don't know that there was any mention tonight of the transfer window. They told us previously that it was going at least until the beginning of the year. I don't remember there being a single mention of it tonight. So we still don't know who may be moving from Raw to SmackDown and from SmackDown to Raw. NXT, who's going to be called up from NXT. Roxanne Perez is defending her women's championship against Julia on New Year's Eve next week. Almost certainly, I would think, is going to drop the title, and then I think Roxanne is a shoo-in to end up on Raw or SmackDown. So she's won. Oba Femi, I mean, he won the Iron Survivor Challenge, so it doesn't feel like he's going to get called up imminently, but he's one I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do on the main roster. So it'll give people a chance because they'll have that extra TV time to be featured on the show. But as a viewer, it's a lot. For the talent, though, hopefully it'll work out for them. But that was Raw tonight. Those are the two highlights, the Io Sky match and the closing segment. Those were easily the best parts of the show. Let's take a look at the Twitter poll. What did you think of the final Raw on USA? 89% thumbs up 11% thumbs down. The final Raw on USA poll. At Solomonster on X. Go follow me there. You can vote too. You don't even have to be 18 years old to go vote. How about that? You could be a fetus. We have a rule where we allow fetuses to vote if they want to. All right, let's get to your super chats. Thank you guys for all of your support tonight. Start with the early birds here. Told you I'll read your messages. The Real CS 02 kicking us off with an early message.
It says Samoa BRO.
And Samoa BRO joining us as well. A pet peeve of mine, when the IWC's favorite wrestler loses, whoever they lose to, they add Hogan to their name. An example of this is Becky Hogan. I'm sure there is a Becky Hogan out there somewhere. I'm sure she's a lovely woman. Yeah, I mean, you could add Hogan onto the end of anyone's name. Who would you say is the biggest politician in wrestling today? I'll call him Rock Hogan. What do you want? What do you want to do? Who do you want to pick? Who's in the Hogan spot? And the Real CS says in 7 days. Cero Miedo. Yes, indeed. Penta Oscuro is on his way in. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Venom Kitetsu, my last $2 of 2024. Cheers, he says. Cheers to you as well, my friend. Wishing you a very happy new year. Charlotte Hogan, says someone. Charlotte Hogan, huh? Charlotte's, she's coming back. Any week now. Jerome Eugenio, I think all these teasers are for the second coming of Veer. So Veer is still coming, huh? WWE Wrestling and Gaming. Predictions for next year's King of the Ring and Money in the Bank winners. I don't know. Ask me in a few months about King of the Ring and Money in the Bank. I'll give you a King of the Ring one. Drew McIntyre. King McIntyre. And then he goes on to win the championship. Money in the Bank, it's December, guys. Okay? I have no fucking idea. I don't have a clue. Brian Musha. Thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Mr. Rod with the $20. Mr. Rod, Happy New Year. Average Joe. Oh, Average Show. I don't know why I thought that said Average Joe. Average Show at best. Io versus Lyra was excellent, but if Io doesn't have a title on her in 2025, there is a problem. I agree. Mercedes Mo Hogan. You just call her Mercedes Hogan. Mo Hogan is stupid. Just call her Mercedes Hogan if that's how you feel. Demetrius. Thank you for the membership. Alfonso with the $9.99. I was at the show tonight. That Jey Uso entrance is truly something special. Just a shot of adrenaline in your soul. Happy New Year, Solo. May the channel grow even bigger. Thank you, sir. We are very close to 83,000, so we should be there in no time. That don't work for me, sister. Dark Effect with the $50 bomb. Hey, Solo, just wondering your opinion on Zilla Fatu. With the bloodline being so hot, you hear his name brought up a lot. As someone who has seen his work, do you see things that he could still improve on, or is he a total natural like Jacob Fatu? He's not Jacob Fatu, but he has certain natural abilities that I just think I'm convinced that like all members of that family, of that bloodline, it's just something that innately they're born with. He's picking up on things very quickly. You got to remember, he is barely 40 matches, if that, into his career. You know, and I've had the chance to call many of his matches and get to see him up close and see what he can do. He brings an intensity to him that's fun, but he's still very raw in many ways because he's got little over a year in the business. So you give it time, and I think he'll get even better. He's not where he will be, but he's got all the tools to be something special. It's just very, very early in his career. Demetrius, thank you for the 5. No message, just showing some love. I appreciate that. Prince Vegeta 95, last super chat of 2024. I understand that it's time to take the title off of Liv, but last time Rhea was champion, she barely wrestled. So this time it's the same, but just as a babyface. Well, you don't know that. Her reign last time was very underwhelming, but you don't know that it's going to be more of the same. I'm hoping the fact that she is a babyface now will mean that she will be more active in the ring and more competitive, and she'll have at least the occasional title defense on TV. So you can't say that it's going to be exactly the same thing until we see how it plays out. But I agree, that first run was very underwhelming. She spent most of her time outside the ring in the fucking clubhouse in the back. Jeremy Rose, which of his many names will Penta go by in WWE? You know what? Just keep it at Penta. That's probably just going to be easiest, honestly. But I would love to start calling him Pentagon Jr. again. I don't think he's going to be Pentagon Jr., but just call him Penta. Also, what do you think Becky does when she comes back? Rhea feud or something like Io or Valkyria or Liv? Well, she might go after Liv first. I could see Becky and Liv first. But I think the play is going to be Becky and Lyra for the Intercontinental title. That's what I think. Arabian Night says, could you see WWE bringing back Trent Seven and reuniting him with Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne in a stable? No, I don't. Also, where do you think Josh Alexander signs next month? I think, if I had to take a guess, that Josh Alexander is going to be WWE bound, probably for NXT. Jeremy says Brock versus Penta. We need it. You're not getting Brock versus Penta. You're not getting Brock at all. Base Beer says, what's Stone Cold doing on January 6th? Oh, I don't know. You know what? They're going to be in LA. LA's not that far from Las Vegas. It's not that far from Nevada and where Austin lives. So, you know what? I could see Stone Cold making an appearance on that show. Yeah, he's not going to be too far from home base. But you know what? He might not want to pull himself away from Poncho and Macho. His two cats. Two solid-ass cats. It's amazing how these cats have grown. I remember when he was first talking about Macho on Instagram. Macho was... It's funny. He says Poncho is his world heavyweight champion. And Macho is his Intercontinental champion. And when he got Macho, he was so tiny. He was so small. Now he's gigantic. That's a solid-ass cat. Nick Grasso says, as one of the biggest Io Sky fans, I realistically don't see her winning the Royal Rumble or the Elimination Chamber, especially with Charlotte and Becky coming back. Also, Jordynne Grace coming in. Even if she did, she's just going to job to Rhea. Well, yes, if she does manage to win, she is going to lose to Rhea Ripley. I do not see Io Sky winning the championship at WrestleMania. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to see the match. And that I don't think that she should be in that spot. Base Beerus, so is this the last Raw on TV forever? It is the last Raw on TV for at least the next 5 years. Because I think there's an out clause after 5 years in the Netflix deal. So if things are not well in paradise, technically the deal could end. But for at least the next 5, if not 10 years, yes. That was the final Raw on TV. Base Beerus with the 7 says, need that winged eagle, that white winged eagle in the background. Reminds me of HBK's WrestleMania 12 attire. White and gold. Thought he had that belt, but it was his tights. Now, Shawn Michaels never had the only person who ever had the white winged eagle was the Ultimate Warrior. He had white, he had powdered blue. Shawn never had it. It's a beautiful belt. It's just, again, there's no space behind me, and it's so freaking heavy. I wish I could. I wish I could. But right now you're gonna have to settle for the original over my shoulder right there. But I have been admiring it all weekend. I look over and there it is, and it's gorgeous. Tonga Loa Superfan is with us tonight. The 2-cat power trip. I love it. Poncho and Macho. It's pretty much all I use Instagram for at this point. It's just to follow other people's cats. Tonga Loa Superfan, just saw you were picked for Best Wrestler of the Year 2024 on the podcast, and I completely understand that you had to disqualify Tonga Loa for the time he missed due to injury. I was hoping you would understand. He was definitely in the running, but once he got hurt, I just couldn't do it. So, thank you for understanding. Matt Fisher. If Dave Meltzer hears about Austin being at WrestleMania, I guarantee he's going to assume he's wrestling Triple H. Why do we still listen to Dave at all? You don't have to. No one says you have to listen to Dave. Base Beerus. Mortos is coming. 0 puntos. The Beast Mortos, huh? I said, man, if Vince was still there and the Beast Mortos was coming in, he would be Morty. He would call him Morty and give him a comedy gimmick on TV. Matt Fisher, oh God, that poor guy in the intro is going to be running from the black hole again. Oh man, we may have to bring back Green Man. Poor Green Man. Might fall into the hole. Stadium J. How will WWE keep us coming back after they've given us everything on the first episode? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. They're going to have a couple of aces up their sleeve and a couple of surprises, and hopefully it'll be a great show and it'll keep you interested and wanting to tune in the following week, right? That's their job. Their job is to put out a product on TV that will hopefully keep you hooked and want to come back for a second time and a third time and a fourth time and a 10th time. It's called episodic television. They used to be really bad at that. They've gotten better, though. Happy New Year, Stadium J. George freaking Seckman. I can't wait for Hexagon Senior to debut and join the LWO and then turn and join Legado del Fantasmo, he says. You know, we have El Fantasmo in New Japan. It'd be kind of funny if WWE one day they wanted to use the name and they're like, we'll just add a D. So we'll make it Del Fantasmo. And that way we could trademark it. Demetrius Hodge, do you think if they continue the Bloodline story, will we see the Usos against the Gorillas of Destiny at WrestleMania? No. No. First of all, I think they're going to want Jey Uso doing something more than that. And number two, I don't know that Tonga Loa is going to be back in time for WrestleMania. So I'm going to say no on that. It's possible, but I'm going to say no. Troll Mexican 305, no Ultra Boss, back to love tonight. Nope, not tonight. Still listen to the review, but I can't get jiggy to the intro. Not playing Back to Love, Don't Work For Me, Brother. Yeah, a lot of people like that song. We'll have to work that into the rotation a little more often. I got another song, by the way, I'm going to be using this week. It's hard to find ones that are safe to use, but there's some good ones out there. You just got to know where to look and get some recommendations from people. The Mount Burning Kid, Christopher Bennett, glad we're on the same wavelength. I think he meant wavelength. I don't know what that is. Every time Seth says, I'm a revolutionary, I always say, what way that... Okay, so clearly Chris wrote this message out on his phone and does not use autocorrect. I think you glitched out there during the super chat, but he says, I always say, What the hell did you revolutionize, dude? Yeah, he didn't revolutionize a damn thing. It's just stupid. It's just stupid gobbledygook nonsense. Doesn't make any sense at all. Tonga Loa superfan. How much time can Tonga Loa miss in 2025 before you would disqualify him from your end of the year awards? 1 week. If he misses even 1 week, I'm disqualifying him. And Base Beerus God of Seduction, PSA, new Samantha Irvin Instagram post tonight. Oh boy. I will have to check that out. I'll check that out later. I can only imagine. Hey, Richie, thank you for the 5. If Sean had went to WCW in 97, 98, would he be a member of the NWO? Absolutely. He would have been right there with Hall and Nash. And I don't know that Sean is alive today, frankly. I mean, he was that fucked up at the time that it's one of those things where in life you kind of get to a fork in the road and you go left or you go right. He went right, and that turned out to be the best move he could have made for himself. Had he gone left, I don't know. I don't know how that would have turned out. But I think with the politics and the clash of personalities and Hogan and everything behind the scenes in WCW, that would have been an awful situation for Shawn Michaels to be in. And it would have been awful for the people around him, too, unless they were his close friends. I think it was for the better that he didn't go. Base Beerus, use Prince, 1999. Oh, sure. Yeah. Sure. Be demonetized in 5 seconds. Tonga Loa superfan. I don't believe bigger is always better. What Solo says on every first date. It's true. It's true. You know me so well. Thank you, Tonga Loa superfan. Now I won't feel so bad the next time I shit all over Tonga Loa now. I'll feel a little bit better about myself now. HBK as a Hogan crony in the NWO? Yeah, I'm sure he would have loved to play second fiddle to Hulk Hogan in the NWO. Can you imagine at that time, 97, 98, Hogan and Shawn Michaels trying to just politic their way into the top spot, holding on to that top spot, having to fight each other, tooth and nail, all the bullshit, all the games, all the little cliques forming. Oh my God, you could have probably wrote an entire book about it. It would have been more entertaining, frankly, to watch what was going on behind the scenes than what was going on TV sometimes. All right, the goal tonight, as it usually is, was 400 likes. We're at 423, so thank you guys for that. You know what that means. We're going to go ahead and be the booker. That's what we're going to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
That's what we're going to do. Well, Bret did it, yes, but Bret Hart, are you mistaking Bret Hart with Shawn Michaels as far as politicking and being an ass, being impossible to deal with, and going around telling people I don't lay down for anybody? When did Bret Hart ever say that? He said it one time. He said it one time, and it was about Shawn Michaels. And it was because Vince McMahon was stupid enough to allow him to have creative control over his finishes in the way that he left in the last 60 days of his contract. You want to blame anybody for it, don't blame Bret, go blame Vince. I don't blame Hogan. I don't blame Hogan for having creative control in his contract. Eric Bischoff is the dipshit who was dumb enough to give it to him in the first place. Hey, if somebody would be willing to give me creative control, am I going to tell my lawyer no? I don't blame him for that. All right, we begin with the Fabulous Freebirds kicking us off here in Be the Booker. I feel like we land on them quite a bit, don't we? The Fabulous Freebirds. are going to be taking on Anderson and Gallows. Well, we always have the women's match. There's always the ladies' match. We begin with Michin. And it will be Michin, still trying to win that U.S. title from Chelsea Green. Michin against Sonya Deville. Boy, we are really ripping through Be the Booker here, aren't we? We're going out with a whimper. Come on, man. The final Raw stream of the year. This is horrible. This is horrendous. All right, men's Be the Booker. We have oh my God, look who showed up to work. It's Miro, everybody. Does he even wrestle anymore? Or does he DoorDash? What does he do these days? I don't know what he does. Miro is back, but not for Tony Khan. Miro is back for me here in Be the Booker. And Miro is going to be in our main event. That's right. It's Rusev Day. And it will be Miro against Mark Briscoe. Now, I like Mark Briscoe, but how are we feeling about this as a main event? Because I'm feeling a buzz coming on. I'm giving you guys 10 seconds to chime in with what you think in the chat. Bell, buzzer, bell, buzzer. Boy, you guys are not helpful at all. You guys are not helpful at all. It's 50-50 in the chat. I didn't know what I wanted to do there, so I had to outsource the decision, but I'll give it a bell. It's not really a main event, but I'll give it the bell. We have to at least have one bell tonight. I can't have all buzzes. It's a Rampage match. There is no Rampage anymore. You can't use that joke anymore. So now what's the new joke? You can't say it's a Rampage match. So what is it now? Is it a main event? Is it a main event match? Actually, no, it's not a main event match. It's a collision match. I don't know. I know we just had Mark Briscoe the other night. You know what? It's the end of the year. I'm adding a fourth match to this card. We can't go out like this. We can't go out like this. I'm expanding. I'm pulling a Tony Khan. I'm adding even more matches to this card. This will be our main event. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter what we land on. For better or worse, this is going to be our main event. Okay. This is more like it. We got Sting. What the hell happened to him? What an image. Look at this. We have Sting, who is apparently in great distress as the blood pours from his mouth. Either that or he dove into the best jelly donut ever. I don't know. But Sting looks in rough shape here. I don't know if he should be medically cleared for this match. Actually, I know exactly what that's from. It's when Sting jumped off the ladder on Dynamite and he hit the fucking table. Sting against Kevin Nash. That's a Wolfpack match right there. That is a battle of the Wolfpack members. Sting against Big Sexy Kevin Nash. Pick a stipulation for it. If we're going to do it, we got to go all the way. Sting and Kevin Nash are going to have themselves, oh no, on a pole, bro. It's a pole match with Baby Russo on the pole between Sting and Kevin Nash. Well, he would have been booking probably at the time, right? So that kind of makes sense. Oh, man. Well, we ruined it with that stipulation. We ruined it. We ruined it. I had to pick one. I had to pick a stipulation. I was curious. I was curious. We went full Russo. You never go full Russo. I ruined it. I know. I know. I ruined it. We have Nick Grosso says, on Raw Talk, I think they announced the final testament against the Wyatt Six next week. Well, how nice of them to announce it on the post show and not on the actual show. The Mount Vernon Kid, Christopher Bennett. Sorry about that. I was typing on my phone. Autocorrect was turned off. One more question for the year. How would you feel if Dakota won the IC belt? I'd be happy for her. I don't really have a dog in this hunt. I predicted that Lyra will win, but I'm fine with either woman winning. If Dakota wins, I don't have an issue with that. Eric G. The last Punk versus Cena match should be at Money in the Bank next year. That would be appropriate. It's one of the best title matches in WWE history. Money in the Bank 2011. Hugh G. Rection is back with us. 25 years ago, what would you say would be the least likely? Stone Cold being a crazy car... I get the reference. A crazy car mom. Kane being a politician, or Taker being a podcast gobshit. Or gobshite. It says gobshite. I don't even know what that means. Honestly, I think Stone Cold being a cat dad. I'm going to go with that. And Prince Zuko 97 just watched the Punk and Rollins segment back. Would have been funny if Punk said, "You're a visionary, a revolutionary, and once you were my mercenary." That's true. I mean, that was the whole genesis of the Shield, right? Their whole association with Paul Heyman and CM Punk. So that would have been clever. Base Beerus, what's your favorite kind of cheese? It's the kind that I don't eat. Yeah, the Juliet, I know it's a British term, but like, you don't pronounce it gobshit, right? I assume it's gobshite, right? Like, if Raw sucks next week, I may come on, like, I should probably just, like, one of these weeks, I got to come on here and just do, like, an entire show and nothing but, like, British slang. I'll just come on here, like, and be like, man, this show was total shite. And just go through every different term that I could possibly learn. I feel like my my European fans would appreciate that. This show was shite. I'm not going to do that. Base Beer says Ricochet. Okay. Very good. Hey, Jonathan, thank you for the membership. He says, Penta applied for 3 trademarks in August: Zero Miedo, Cero Miedo, and Animo. Well, Animo is for Rey Fenix. Hopefully he brings back Pentagon Jr., but we will see. He had to stop using Pentagon Jr. I thought it had something to do with either CMLL or AAA, so I don't know that he would be able to use it. If he can, though, that'd be great. Or even just Pentagon. Yeah. That's marketable. Oh. Hate seeing that. We have got Phil coming in with $2. I went to the OTC's dad and told him, I'm sick of you. Thank you, Phil. Elias went for a walk and didn't come back. That's right. He said walk with Elias, and then we let him walk. He thinks we're all still walking behind him, but he just hasn't turned around yet. AAA owns the name Pentagon Jr. I thought it was something involving one of the 2 promotions, and that's why he can't use it anymore. Is there a difference between bollocks and dog bollocks? Is one good and the other is bad? I would assume dog bollocks is pretty bad, if I had to venture a guess. Happy New Year to Patricia, says Charlotte in the bank. Yes, wherever she may be. Happy New Year to Patricia. Wonder what Elias is up to. I haven't even seen him on the Independents recently. I haven't heard his name mentioned. It's just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. Dog's bollocks is slang for something being great? What? Is that true? Dog's bollocks is actually a positive reference. Timeless British solo. Yes, I'm gonna be timeless Solomonster. Next time you come on the stream, the screen is gonna be black and white, or not even the whole screen, just the window in the middle. It's gonna be black and white. He wrestled Enzo in a high school gym 30 minutes from me last weekend. Well, it's good to see that Elias has he's really doing well then, it sounds like. Wait until you hear the Australian slang waiting for you. Oh boy. I'll tell you what, every video that I see on social media from some of the accounts I'll follow sometimes, like on IG, it's like funny accounts, but they'll have clips from Australia. And it's like, if it's a clip of some sort of creature or a spider, I know immediately it's from Australia, and it makes me just wish I never end up in Australia. Like, holy shit, some of the things that the Aussies have down there, I would die. Like, I would just die. Like, if I saw some of that stuff crawling towards me, I would run the other way, I would burn the house down, and I would never return. Like, there are some scary things down there. It's to the point where I could just see a video and not look at the description, and I'll be like, that's Australia. And more often than not, I'm right. It is Australia. Got nice people, though. They are very nice. Jake Hager against Heath Slater against Jinder Mahal was the main event on that show. Was that the one at the high school gym? Kangaroos are potential kangaroos. Hey, they don't mess around, man. You piss off a kangaroo, he will fuck you up. You do not want to mess with them. They'll mess you up and put you in their pouch. One day, Hog should visit Australia. Well, I'll be recording my commentary in post from home. Enjoy. I'll make sure we put together a great card for you. But I probably will not be there. What company did I get the white-winged eagle? No company. No company. I want an auction. You can't get this anywhere. You can't go to WWE shop and buy this, especially with the WWF plates. Yeah, you're not gonna find this. I got very lucky. Maze the Great. What's the funniest wrestling segment you ever saw? Like, had you dying on the floor? I don't know anything had me dying on the floor, but there's been a lot of so bad it's just ridiculous segment. Honestly, you know what? There is one. The Shockmaster. It's got to be the Shockmaster. Especially the first few times I saw, because I kept watching it over and over and over again. It was just, I couldn't believe what I saw. And then you hear the wrestlers in the background reacting like, oh, I told you. He fell on his face. He fell on his fucking ass. Like, that had me dying. That had me dying. Actually, there was oh God, what was it? There was a podcast of some kind. I'm not even sure it was a wrestling podcast. It might have been a radio show. And they were reacting to it. They were reacting to the Shockmaster clip. And that had me in tears. And I wish I could remember what it was. It's just one of those timeless segments that will never not be funny. Oh yeah, the giant huntsman. That's what they are, I think, in Australia. They're like these giant huntsman spider. It doesn't even look like a spider. It looks like something out of the movie Alien. And they're like, oh, they're harmless. I'm like, oh yeah, they're harmless, except for the heart attack that it will give me, the massive coronary that I'll have. Other than that, they're harmless. Was it Opie and Anthony? Okay, maybe it was Opie and Anthony. I think it was. Yeah, go find that clip. It was from Opie and Anthony many years ago, and they were reacting to the Shockmaster, and they were losing their shit. The promo with Ken Patera, the redheaded steps. Oh yeah. It's always fun when you see Mean Gene break, and he turns his head away to like he's admiring something in the background, right? Like, what is he looking at? Because he's just trying so hard not to laugh, and he fails, and he doesn't want people to see. Those are always the best. Bret Hart says, I'm okay with spiders as long as they are not venomous. Yeah. Would you say that if the spider was bigger than your fist? And you were laying in your bed one night and you looked up and you saw that it was crawling on the ceiling above your head? Would you feel the same way? Given that you live in New York, I guess the rats don't scare you. I don't have rats where I am. I have rats when I tour the country. No, I mean, look, the rats are mostly like in Manhattan and stuff. I don't have rats. I have mice. Unfortunately, that's become an issue in the last couple of years. But no rat, no rat. Although I did have a friend who looked under. There was a weird smell, and he looked under the sink one day, and I don't even know how it happened, but there was a giant dead rat stuck in the pipe that like went up to the sink. I guess its ass was sticking out. I have no idea how it happened. I'm like, hey, better you than me. But no, I don't I don't have that issue, thankfully. A spider that big, the chamber would be empty. Yeah, I'm emptying the clip. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If that's me and I have the means, I'm emptying the fucking clip. That's how that's going down. Retro says, Vietnam has lots of snakes. I almost got jumped by one outside my house a few years ago. Scary stuff. Venomous red millipedes, too. Okay. I'm going to check that off the list as well. We can remove that from the list. Thank you for the heads up. The only spider I'll deal with is Spider-Man. That's right. I can live with Spider-Man. That I can deal with. Anything else, not so much. How are you not scared of rodents? Because I grew up watching Master Splinter on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're very wise. Thank you guys for the fun stream. I will be covering the New Year's Day edition of Dynamite, the first simulcast episode of Dynamite on Max. That'll be on Wednesday night, and then SmackDown, the first 3-hour show. Oh, God. First 3-hour show on Friday. It's already upon us. That'll be SmackDown on Friday night. But before then, before Dynamite and before SmackDown, I will be live tomorrow night. Because tomorrow night is the final night of the year, and I will be live on YouTube. Make it till midnight. We do this every year. Counting down to 2025. I hope you guys will join me. I'll be covering the top matches of 2024, my ranking of those matches, and we will hang out as we ring in the new year together. I think I'm going to have to bust out the Jack, too. I got the good stuff, too. I'm going to have to bust it out. We're going to have to do some drinking tomorrow night. We got to celebrate. It's a brand new year. So I'm probably going to go live around 10:15. That's when I'll be here. So hopefully you guys will join me for that. We always have a good time. Prince Zuko. Oh, I read Prince Zuko already. I thought I missed Prince Zuko, but I didn't. I missed a few others. You should wear the white winged eagle at Hog, said Base Beerus. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Base Beerus says, favorite romantic comedy. I'll take 50 First Dates. I don't have a favorite romantic comedy. Well, you know what? I guess it would be considered a romantic comedy. Kind of. There was a movie that came out many years ago. I want to say it was 1997, I believe, called Trojan War with Will Friedle. He was the older brother from Boy Meets World, and a very young Jennifer Love Hewitt. I love that movie. It used to come on cable very late at night. That's how I saw it for the first time, and I just really enjoyed it. I don't know if you would consider it a romantic comedy. It kind of is, but check it out. It's called Trojan War. Base Beerus, again, thank you for the super chat. Maze the Great, what's the funniest wrestling segment you ever saw? We talked about that already. Power Spying Games, I'll never forget the Ted Cruz Del Toro botch. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's one of the more memorable moments from this year. Richie, your opinion of the finger poke of doom. It was fucking dumb. Anderson Blitz, rest in peace, Monday Night Raw on television. Yes, indeed. Retro KOH, thank you. And Base Beerus, I will see you later today. What time is it? Oh, my goodness. Yes, it is already technically New Year's Eve. So come on back tonight. we'll ring in the new year together. Until then, be well, stay safe. If I don't see you, I want to wish you a very happy new year. Thank you for making this the most successful year yet for the show and the channel. And I will see you back here very soon for more Sound Of. Go back and check out episode 894 of the podcast as well if you missed it. A brand new 2-hour show that went up yesterday. Until tonight, I'll see you guys there. Take care.